Welcome back to Jadonna Live. We have got a fun little short and sweet episode with Bailey and I talking about the winter solstice this week. I am, recovering, so that's why we kept it short and sweet, but super excited to chat with you all. And yeah, if you like the epi, please rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And outside of that, um, I'll see you in a couple weeks. But thanks again for showing up. And yeah, chat soon. Bye. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Jadonna Live. We are here with my favorite returning guest, Bailey, licensed mental health counselor, blooming and developing and already being existing professional. And I'm really excited for this episode because it's one that has now occurred for the second time. Bailey and I always talk on the equinoxes and the solstices, and this is the second solstice, winter solstice discussion I've had with Bailey now for you guys. And I typically hear from people how much you all like these conversations. I really do. So I'm excited. I got the flu on Tuesday, so I have been suffering ever since. And when I say suffering, I truly mean it. I haven't had the flu in a long time. It's terrible. So get your flu shots if you haven't already. And yeah, but anyways, Bailey, welcome back to the show.
Yay, happy to be here as always.
And we're both kind of just making this happen. So, yeah, I don't know, Bailey, if you want to give a state of your mind real quick for the folks, or if you want to just hop right in. What you want to do?
No, I empathize with you. I had the swine flu back in high school, the H1N1, the Heine. There were so many names for it, but that flu, I truly felt like death. So I'm so sorry that you have the flu. Not fun. Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
arriving in my jammies, excited to talk about the solstice. I'm hosting a writing workshop the day before the solstice, so
Fun.
that is exciting this year. Yeah.
Love it.
And
Little plug there. We'll have a link for y'all who want to sign up. Okay.
yeah.
So as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about decision making and how important it is to really mull on decisions, at least in my life. And so I wanted to talk today about decision making and how we can use the winter solstice to make better decisions. I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago, and for some reason, there were a lot of winter solstice themes on that podcast, and I was like I texted you a lot of some of my thoughts on this already because it was like that random day. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my gosh, sending you stuff. And one of the things that stood out to me was how most animals aren't sleeping during hibernation. They're just much less active and very quiet still. And so that just made me think about us during this solstice time. I always thought about hibernation as sleeping, and I honestly never knew this. I don't know a lot of things that like 6th graders know. Just ask my husband, it's really bad. But anyway, I thought animals were like legit knocked out. So when this, don't laugh, Bailey, this is a safe and inviting space. That's what Jadonna Live is about. So when this idea came to me, I was like, oh, okay. So it's possible for us to still be doing things in this time, but just to be really slow, really intentional, and kind of the quote they said in the podcast was working under the cover of darkness, which I really liked. And so that's kind of what I want to spend some time talking about today. And yeah, before I kind of get into my first couple thoughts, any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think about I laughed because I was like picturing animals just like knocked out, like a bear or a pile of snow.
I
But
mean,
I don't think I knew that they weren't actually sleeping either. So, that's that's fun fact. Um, I love this idea of working under the cover of darkness, and when you're talking about, like, decision making, in the work I do with my clients, a lot of time I'll start with, like, foundational values work, which feels very like, "Oh, I think about this all the time," like, simple or easy. Um, but I think a lot of times, uh, it's also not that easy, and to me, it feels like this foundational, like, maybe even subsurface, like, under the cover of dark, like, before anything can grow, we have to know, like, our foundation and what's important to us and what's going to inform our decision making. So that's immediately what came to mind. And what a better time there's or whatever the phrase is, like, there's not a better time than the winter solstice to do some of that, like, subsurface work, you know? Yeah, those are the initial thoughts I had.
Yeah, yeah. I think I feel like in the past, I just feel like recently, and I need to like study my astrology better, but the past 5 years, I've had to make such interesting, very heavy decisions. It feels like heavy for me. Everything's
Mhm.
relative. Um, and I remember someone saying to me like that I came to a decision quickly. And I remember just kind of looking at them and being like, oh, people think I come to decisions quickly because by the time I articulate it and make it, it's fast. But
Mhm.
I think about things forever.
A
And
long
I
time.
think about them for so long. And sometimes I make a decision and then I'll go back on it. And it's not because I'm being flippant. It's because I'm like, no, that's not the right decision. And I know I'm going to have to live with the decision I'm going to make. And I am like very intentional about making the best long-term decision for myself as much as I can see in the
Mhm.
present. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. But so I've been kind of thinking about that, and sometimes it's inconvenient. Like, for example, I started a Substack a couple months ago. I knew I wanted to start it.
Mhm.
Um, but I've had like a couple people ask, like, oh, I see you're not writing a ton yet. Um, but I know that I don't want to just like put something out to put it out. I want to be in a rhythm. I want it
Yeah.
to make sense. I want it to be cohesive, similar to when I started the podcast in November 2023, and then I picked it back up in the spring when I knew I was going to be able to do it weekly. And then I've been
Mhm.
doing it weekly slash bi-weekly ever since. And so I think that's just a great reminder. It's been a great reminder to me that the time you spend really like contemplating and thinking
Mhm.
and under the cover of darkness, people may not know, you may not talk about it, but you know
Mhm.
that you need that time to really think about what you're going to do. And so for me, like I said, I really chew and process for a really long time. Typically ask like people I really trust things, not to have their answers determine what I do, but I just like more insight.
Mhm.
And just thinking about the solstice is a great time to either reflect on some decisions maybe you've been avoiding, or even just giving yourself the space to chew on big, like heavy questions, to make sure that you give yourself long enough to make sure what you're doing is really what you want to be doing. I'm like obsessed with that in this stage of my life. I
Mhm.
think um living apart from family and friends for so long just gave me so much clarity of mind for a lot of years that I sort of started to realize like, oh, I do a lot that others want, and what do I really think, and just kind of cultivated that relationship of really thinking and processing
Yeah.
more intimately to then make decisions that may look whatever, but I know I feel right with.
Yeah.
And it gives you a sort of personal confidence and like um connection. Whereas even when, yeah, like a recent decision I made, even Daniel, my husband's like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I'm like, "I'm sure. Like I've thought about this a long time. I
Mhm.
know what works and what won't work for me." And you, there's nothing more beautiful than like being able to say something like that so confidently to the person who knows you most, and not to have the thought make you think like, oh shoot, I didn't do that right. But to have that, but
Mhm.
to have it, ooh, keep my voice. But to have it, sure, make like challenge you, like, did I make the right decision? And then allow me to go back and say I did. Like
Mhm.
tough, but I did. And so, yeah, does that bring up anything for you? I know that was a lot there.
Yeah, you're touching on so many different things, like the whole process, but I'm hearing uh, like the values work, what's important to me, what do I want, but also this sort of like cultivating that sense of knowing, like inner sense of knowing of like this checks out with me and it doesn't have to check out with anyone else, right? And being confident in that. I also think about like I always bring back the like earth-based agrarian metaphors with the solstice and equinoxes because it just makes sense. Like the winter time is this time of preparation. Your garden won't have anything to show for it yet. So it's like the pre-work and working under the cover of darkness, right? Like the garden's put to bed, you're at home mapping out what am I going to do? Which direction am I going to go this year? Where am I going to plant what? Um, it's a lot of work putting into it. There's a lot of work when you sow the seeds in spring, but then you just kind of wait for a while. There's actually less work in the spring when you can finally plant your garden, other than just getting seeds in the ground. Versus then, like the summer, the work picks back up when you're harvesting and you're maintaining and tending and all of that. And then again in the fall, you're like harvesting, but it's not a whole lot of work like the maintenance of summer and the prep of winter. So that's kind of this like I don't know, ebb and flow, this little wave that I'm thinking about. I'm also thinking about, funny enough, I have it right here in my hands. I'll have to explain this because not everyone may be watching. So this is a concept that makes sense to my brain where I write down all my values and then I write down like what do these values look like lived out? Like what are things I want because of them in my life? And I can even give you a specific example. So like one of my values is slow. And one way that I want that to look in my life is reply time and text and communications. And I want to be like unhurried and thoughtful and just like take my time when I'm like texting someone back. I'm usually someone who's like, blah, 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 like in the moment, I'll just reply and then I like don't remember what I said or I have to like backtrack. um, and so, and then off of that, I write like a boundary. Like, how can I protect that? Like in what way can I protect this desire or this action, this lived out value in my life by implementing boundaries? So it's very like mappy and tangible, but I like having it on paper. So as you were talking, I was just thinking of like how I've been doing that on my big rolls of paper these days. Mind mapping out everything. Because it's one thing to like know it intuitively and to like feel it. But I think to learn how to communicate it, like you said, so clearly and confidently, I have to get it out of me and onto paper or into the ears of my friends or, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, and I like that. It kind of seems comparatively that I end up doing a similar thought process based on like a circumstance or a scenario that
hmm
that comes to me, or that like I create. But it seems like you're kind of getting ahead of that by creating like your map before by value, like by topic, and kind
Mhm.
of assessing beforehand, like essentially how am I going to react? How am I going to respond? What am I going to prioritize? Um, and then using that to help you do that versus
Yeah.
like me being in a scenario and spending. So, I guess what I'm saying is that may end up cutting down some of that in the moment time because you're
Mhm.
kind of doing it on the back end and reflecting in really big chunks. Whereas as these individual things come to me is when I'm then forced to be like, well, and
You mind
then
map it backward.
yeah, and it kind of takes,
Yeah.
and it's by scenario versus by topic, and
Mhm.
ends up taking sometimes a lot of time, which I currently have the luxury of because I don't leave my house much. Um, and but yeah, I kind of like that because it's just like different ways of doing a
Mhm.
similar thing. Typically, I'm like a big journal writing person, and that just has not been the stage of my life.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get more of my brain back to where I'm able to do that. But I love that. And um there is a poem also mentioned in this other podcast that I love, and I won't read the whole thing, but I'll just read a line that really stuck out to me. It was the Solstice Love Letter to Darkness poem. That's
Mhm.
the title. Um, by Adrienne Marie Brown. And the quote I really loved was, "In the folds of the dark, I find room for my dreams." And I don't necessarily think that all the time in the solstice needs to be spent processing like your dreams necessarily. I think
Mhm.
that's great. And if you're like at that point in your life where you can do that, I feel like I'm currently not. Um, but if you are, lovely. But maybe instead of in the folds of the dark, I find room for my dreams. In the folds of the dark, I just find room. And then you can kind of insert whatever you want to insert into that
Mhm.
blank. Whether it's like I mentioned before, pragmatic questions your life needs answered, or other things you potentially been looking off, or putting off. Like today, I always think about moving again. Like I just always think about it. I'm like, oh, I know I don't want to be here forever. And then
Mhm.
today, as I'm looking up jobs in other states, I just like stopped a minute in because I'm like, I'm not moving I'm not moving soon. Like that's not, it
Yeah.
doesn't even feel like that's happening. Like as much as I would maybe want that in my brain, like it doesn't, it just, my reality and that don't align. Like it just doesn't make sense. I've got
Mhm.
debt to pay off, you know, yeah, lots to do. And so I'm like, that's just not really happening. And that's okay for now. And
Yeah.
so also using that time in the darkness, like to be a realistic processor. And
Mm.
that's coming from someone who will be like, whatever you want to do, you can do it. Whatever you dream up, you can figure out. I 100% believe that. But in that same vein, like me thinking I'm gonna move back somewhere when I've got a lot of credit card debt, just recently bought this house, have a lease on a car ending, like so many transitions. It's like
Mhm.
that would be so stupid. And so just being realistic
Yeah.
about some of these dreams and ideas and goals, and like if you just graduated but you also want to start a business in the next year, like being like, okay, maybe I have to stay at my job a little longer than I want and keep kind of like cultivating in the dark
Mhm.
until I'm ready. Kind of like Bailey said, keep toiling in the winter so then in the spring you can sit back. But maybe it's not the time yet. So yeah, just having some realistic processing as you're using the solstice to think, and
Mhm.
allowing yourself to think critically in this time. And just one more thing with that, like I've being an honest, like co-conspirator with yourself, I
Mhm.
feel like is something I didn't realize how important it was
Mhm.
until like adulthood, maybe. It's just like how many people aren't realistic with themselves about where they are, how they're going to get there, what they really need, and
Mhm.
either see who they are as different than like, or see who they are. And then if you analyze that with how they lived, it's just like
Yeah.
not even remotely close to the same. And so you're a therapist, you probably have tips on this, but just trying to learn how you can be realistic with yourself
Yeah.
about who you are and the life you want and being okay with like who you are, accepting
Mhm.
that so then you can kind of create in a more aligned way.
Oh, I love that. I mean, on that note, I have something to say about darkness and mystery, so remind me if I forget. But on that, I am thinking about like how so often when we aren't realistic with ourselves, a lot of time I feel like that comes from this place of like not accepting ourselves as we are. Like, oh, the thoughts make sense in my brain. But what I'm thinking about is like when we have when we're overly idealistic or like extremely pessimistic, like both aren't realistic. I'm thinking of it on like both ends of the pendulum, like actually right in the middle where reality is. That's where acceptance is. And I love the honest co-conspirator language. But I do think that like if we're overly idealistic or extremely self-limiting, both need to sort of recalibrate in the middle there to like find their footing and to be grounded and to like move forward like a version of the third way, the middle way, um, I don't know if that makes sense of what you were talking about.
Yeah. And you also mentioned wanting to say something else, but I now forget.
Oh, I remember, and that's all you needed to say. Well, I was thinking about like clarity. You were talking about clarity earlier and how like working under the cover of darkness, like it's dark. Like you're working, you're exerting energy, you're thinking, yeah, like doing all of this like inner work without clearly seeing the payoff, the result, or even what's happening. I don't know. Like when I think about the solstice being like the celebration of the return of the light, if we were to apply that to this, it's like slowly but surely from that day on, we will begin to see the fruits of our labor and like what we've been working on. And like, I think a lot of this is like committing to the work, whatever that is for you, and like accepting the mystery of it all and the uncertainty of it all, the unknowing of it all. And over time, you'll begin to see like how the things you were preparing for and planted have manifested and have grown more specifically and like nuance to your life.
Yeah. No, I find that really interesting because it's more so a commitment to that process.
Hmm.
Like entering into this solstice, and we'll kind of wrap it up here, but
Hmm.
kind of leaning into the fact that you know the solstice is coming, you know it's an annual thing. So, there's already an awareness. If you listen to the show, like this is now at least the second time you've been really aware that that's happening, winter specifically. And so, knowing that it's coming, thinking, okay, I want to embark on this solstice differently. I'm not, maybe you're not sure what question you want to even process. So maybe it's as simple as setting aside like 5 minutes a day or 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever, to just sit in that darkness, to just get familiar with the empty space, to then eventually be able to kind of like cultivate something from it.
Hmm.
Um, I love encouraging people to just like do something they haven't done. I typically have like 50 things I'm trying to do. Um, but I think I've just learned so much more about embracing the slowdown and finding peace in that. Peace in the no rushing. Uh, Peace in the not responding back, which is
Mhm.
so interesting who that bothers and who it doesn't. Um, and also just, I was asked the other day a question and I was like, well, old me would have responded to this so quickly.
Mm,
But current me is just like asking thoughtful questions and won't have an answer until probably after the holidays because I'm not rushing. There's no need to rush. Like,
mhm,
process long enough for your responses to make sense. Like, for your life to make sense and to align with who you are. And I think that's really kind of the vibe and the energy I know I'm carrying in certain aspects of my life. I'm sure if I thought about it deeper everywhere, I'd find blind spots where I'm like, ooh, I don't do that there. My family would be like, do that with us. Do that with how you talk to us. Um, but yeah, just a reminder to slow down. If you're in
mhm,
Indiana, you've had that reminder be extremely physical with the snow and
mhm.
um yeah, that's been hard but also fun. And yeah,
Yeah, the snow helps in the cold weather to slow you down and to keep you in stillness and in quiet a bit more, for sure.
so does illness.
Yeah, that
So
of that.
I would recommend one over the other,
Yeah.
but if you have both at the same time,
Oh, man.
um, as well as many, many other things that make you slower. Yeah, I'm just glad I've already cultivated that a while back. Otherwise, I'd feel like I would be crazy, but it's like I'm used to doing nothing and kind of sitting and just,
I
whatever, going with the flow. But
I prepared for this.
yeah, but the sickness part, no, not really. But anyway, yeah, anything else, Bailey, you want to say before we
No, when does this come out? Friday?
tomorrow?
Oh, comes out tomorrow, the 15th. Hello.
Yeah, before the
Well, cool.
solstice.
If you're listening, sign up for my workshop. I have discount codes on discount codes, or you can come for free. I just want people there. Um, and I'll try to get you a snail mail package of some special goodies that help make the workshop
Ooh,
feel even cozier. So,
and just remarket what it is again.
yep, yep. It's called Writing Your Wilderness. It's a nature-based writing workshop for self-discovery. You have no writing experience necessary. It's just like the medium that we're using to explore alongside the natural world. So it's great. It's great for the solstice. It's great for like the work to do leading up to the new year, a time of reflection. It's virtual. It's over Zoom, Saturday, December 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's it.
You hide it here,
Mm-hmm.
feist.
Uh-huh.
Cool. Well, like I said, I'll have that link in this episode description. And outside of that, we're just going to end it here. So I'll go ahead and say, take it easy, breathe deeply, and keep doing what you do. I'll catch you next time. Same place, same vibe. Bye.